I should have stopped collecting the drawings when I realized they all depicted the same face. My research began innocently enough, a longitudinal study on childhood imagination and social development. Funded by the university's psychology department, I interviewed parents, collected surveys, and asked children to draw pictures of their imaginary friends. Standard developmental psychology, the kind of research that fills academic journals and occasionally makes feel-good news segments. After 18 months, I had documentation on 247 imaginary friends from children across 6 states. The data revealed normal patterns, invisible companions who provided comfort during difficult transitions, elaborate fantasy worlds that reflected children's emotional needs, temporary friends who would disappear as kids developed and gained real social connections. However, that's not to say that there weren't anomalies that made me question this entire study. Part of the study was for children to draw their imaginary friends. Of course, we can't see them since they are imaginary, so this serves to help me understand what they see, what they imagine, and gives me insight into the psychological workings of their minds. You really can tell a lot about how a kid is feeling and is raised based on how they perceive their imaginary companions. As I was going over my documents late one night with a cup of coffee that had far too much sugar in it and my phone on Do Not Disturb so no one interrupts my thought process, I read through the most recent reports and skimmed over the images that were sent to me. Most of the drawings were in crude stick figures with crayons. Some were more elegant than others, using colored pencils and fine lines in their drawings. Of course, not all kids are going to be the next Picasso, but there is still something pleasant about seeing the occasionally well-drawn image from a child every now and then. Most, however, as I said before, use stick figures in improper proportions that I typically dismissed as a lack of artistic experience with the human form. A few had very strange characteristics that I chalked up to childish whimsy and imagination. Some had tails, some were part reptile or part bird. Some had heads that were way too big for their bodies. Those ones always made me chuckle. Some had a little top hat or rainbow-colored teeth and hair, and some even looked like their parents in a way. There was one that made me uncomfortable to look at though, almost as if the woman in the image was trying too hard to seem like a friend, and that in itself just made her seem even more unfriendly to me. But as I kept reviewing the drawings, that's when I noticed it. A familiar face, a reappearing body shape, a repeating design, a recurring, uncanny smile. At first I thought it was a coincidence, that a child had submitted 2 drawings on accident of their imaginary friend and brushed it off, but I found another, and another, and another. There were 11 drawings in total, 11 children from completely different families in different cities had drawn remarkably similar figures. The same elongated limbs, same dark, hollow eyes, same unsettling smile that was too wide for the face. The smile that wanted so badly to convince you the being that it's attached to is harmless, but sets off all of your do not engage alarms when you stare too long at it. The children had never met, attended different schools, and lived hundreds of kilometers apart. Yet they all drew the same imaginary friend, the one that I couldn't stand to look at. But it wasn't just the way it looked that was the same. Across all 11 kids, their imaginary friend had the exact same name, Anka. I initially dismissed it as coincidence. Children's drawings often share common elements, and Inka could be a popular character from some show I wasn't familiar with. So, of course, I looked into all of the popular kid shows at the time for a trace of this Inka, thinking perhaps she is a main character, or at the very least, a fan favorite. However, when I researched children's media, I found no character matching the description. In fact, I found no characters who were even named Anka. As I went over my notes and the notes that others had collected from the study, it soon became clear to me that the children who drew Anka were different from my other subjects. During the interviews, they were usually articulate about their friend's appearance and behavior. They could describe Anka's voice, mannerisms, and preferences with startling detail. Most imaginary friends evolved over time as children's needs changed, but Anka remained remarkably consistent across all reports. She tells me things, said Marcus, age 6, from Portland, about people before they happen, like when Daddy was going to lose his job or when Grammy got sick. Inka knows everyone, stated Sophie, age 7, from Denver. She shows me other kids who talk to her too. We're all friends of Inka, Dr. Martinez. I continued reading the remarks that the kids had about this Inka, but I couldn't get past what Sophie had said. Inka knows everyone, I repeated to myself. That detail made my skin crawl. Imaginary friends were supposed to be personal, private companions. They didn't connect children to networks of other kids. I expanded my research, specifically targeting children who claimed to have friends named Anka. The response was overwhelming. Within 6 months, I documented 89 children across 12 states who described identical experiences with the same entity. Their drawings were disturbingly uniform, the same proportions, same facial features, the same unsettling details that seemed beyond typical childhood artistic development, and the same smile that feigns innocence. I should have stopped collecting the drawings when I realized they all depicted the same face. But my academic curiosity overrode my growing unease. The children described Anka's behavior in eerily similar terms. She appeared during times of stress or isolation. She knew things about the children's lives that they'd never told anyone. She encouraged them to keep secrets from their parents. And most disturbing of all, she talked about the others, other children she visited, creating a sense of belonging to something larger. Anka says we're special, 8-year-old David from Chicago told me. She says normal kids can't see her, but we can because we're going to help her with something important. What kind of help? I asked. David's expression became distant, unfocused. She hasn't told us yet, but she says when we're older, we'll understand. We'll all meet each other and do something together. I began tracking the children longitudinally, checking in with families every few months. The pattern that emerged was terrifying in its consistency. Children who maintained contact with Anka showed accelerated development in certain areas, pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and mathematical concepts far beyond their grade level. But they also exhibited concerning behaviors, social withdrawal, resistance to authority, and an unusual interest in topics like archaeology, ancient civilizations, and death. Their parents reported strange incidents, children waking up with knowledge they shouldn't possess, complex drawings and writings and symbols that resembled no known language, conversations overheard where children seemed to be receiving detailed instructions about subjects completely inappropriate for their age. The breakthrough came when I analyzed the geographical distribution of Anka's sightings. They weren't random. The children lived in locations that, when mapped, formed geometric patterns across the landscape, perfect triangles, precise circles, arrangements that suggested careful planning rather than coincidental distribution. Someone, or rather, something, was systematically selecting children based on geographic coordinates. I tried to publish my findings, but academic journals rejected the research as methodologically unsound and lacking scientific rigor. Colleagues dismissed my work as an elaborate hoax or evidence of researcher bias. Even the university that gave me this imaginary friend study in the first place quietly suggested that I might benefit from a paid leave of absence for a while. But the children kept contacting me. Now teenagers, they began reaching out independently, describing shared dreams and synchronized experiences. They spoke of receiving assignments from Anka, tasks that involved visiting specific locations, collecting particular objects, or performing rituals that they didn't understand but felt compelled to complete. 1 week ago, I got a phone call late in the afternoon while I was combing through my most recent findings and seeing if there was something that I missed when I heard my ringer go off. I thought I set it to do not disturb, but answered it anyway so I could tell whoever it was to call back another time. Dr. Martinez, said 17-year-old Sophie, who was on the other end of the call. Her voice, hollow with exhaustion. Anka says it's almost time. She says the preparation phase is ending. All of us are supposed to gather at the coordinates she's been teaching us since we were kids. Where? I asked, hoping I could piece together whatever the hell was about to go down. I can't tell you that, but Dr. Martinez, she knows about your research. She knows you've been studying us, and she's not happy about it. The line went dead. As upset as I was about that interruption, I thought to myself it's my own fault for leaving my ringer on when I know to turn it off when working. I went to switch to Do Not Disturb, only to stare at my phone in confusion, as it was already set to that mode, long before the call took place. That night, I dreamed of dark, hollow eyes and an impossibly wide smile. I woke to find a drawing on my nightstand, done in my own handwriting, the same elongated figure I'd seen in hundreds of children's artwork since I first came across it at my desk over 9 years ago. That smile was unmistakable. I knew what I was looking at before I even read the note that was also in my handwriting. Below the drawing of her, in careful block letters, was a message that said, "Your study is complete. Discontinue research. Soon, you will all see me like I see all of you. Anka." I destroyed my files, shredded the drawings, erased all digital records of my research. But it's too late. Somewhere across the country, 89 young adults who've been in contact with the same entity since childhood are converging on coordinates they've memorized since they were 6 years old, and I'm the only person who knows they're coming, the only person who understands that what we called imagination was actually recruitment. Anka was never imaginary. She was just very, very patient. And soon, we'll all see what Anka sees. Thank you for staying until the end of the show. I appreciate you giving me some of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again. If you can tell me what you enjoyed about today's episode, that will help me so I can know what things to give you more of. This story was written by yours truly, so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to hear another story that I wrote, you can check out the previous video. I plan to record my own stories once a week or so, but I'll still read submissions from others as well. The idea for the story came from a game my sister and I used to play when we were very young, where we would just say the word Anka to each other over and over and over, trying to guess what the other was really trying to say. And then a few years later, our younger cousins picked it up, and even though my sister hated them for playing the Anka game, after all of those years, I would egg them on just to screw with her. What's funny is that none of us even know where the word Anka even came from. It just became this thing that we both wanted to do out of nowhere. Strange, huh? Anyway, if you want to listen to more of my voice, you can listen to all the episodes in this series here. This is typically the part of the show where I tell you that you can find me on Spotify and other places, but part of the reason I was gone for so long was because Spotify actually took down my entire show. According to them, I was uploading content from Inviso Dark when I wasn't allowed to, even though I am Inviso Dark. I tried to fight them to give me back my show for a few months, but I got no helpful or useful reply from them. and they literally told me there was nothing I can do, and they denied all of my appeals. So, that's why you haven't seen as much of me as of recent. Worry not, because until I find a solution, YouTube will be my home for now, where you can catch my daily, yes, you heard right, daily episodes of chilling stories from the dark. That's me. I'm the dark, by the way. And if you have a story that you would like to recommend to me, you can reach out to me via Reddit, Discord, or email. Again, if you enjoyed today's episode, tune in for the next story or just go back and watch the last one. But until then, I hope you watch the shadows that lurk just beyond your sight. Thank you for listening, and to all, a good night.